ultimate Freyna grind is easier and faster than I thought. However, you need to have an efficient and effective strategy going in. I want you to pay attention on the background gameplay where I show you how I got the ultimate Freyna code in 2 different places. This is just to emphasize that I tested every option available even after I got those parts, just so I can be in a better position to give you my recommendation on which patterns you should farm for in order to achieve the best results. My name is Weds, and I'm going to show you what I believe to be an efficient process of acquiring Ultimate Freyna. Here is a tool that I use to grind for Ultimate Descendants and Ultimate Weapons in this game. It is an efficient tool you can take advantage of. A link will be in the description for your convenience. I donated a few bucks to these guys from the beginning of the game because this has made my grinding a lot easier in the First Descendant. It's a free tool to use, so you're not obligated to donate anything. Anyway, first thing first, with all the options available for each part, I'm going to make the best recommendation based on my experience with this grind. As I mentioned in the beginning, I have tried many options while farming for each part. So, my recommendation is genuinely based on my experience. Even so, I would ask you to consider everything with a grain of salt, simply because in the end, it is just a recommendation, and I know everyone's luck will be different when it comes to RNG. I just want to make sure I clarify this. Now, for the first part, the Enhanced Cell Blueprint, let me show you how the website breaks everything down for your convenience. And this will be the process for every other part. So when you come to the website, TFD Farm, so you have all these options. Like I said, I support those guys, so if you decide you want to give him a couple bucks, then, you can just support them and they'll be grateful. So they have items, so if you want to farm for resources, you can click on that and you can see all the resources. It shows you where they are, which location, and then where you need to go. So this is very convenient. But if you want to farm for crystallization, same thing. It shows you all the resources that are required for crystallization. And you can click on it and it tells you which location to go and farm it and how many you get for doing it. And they even give you a recommendation on which one is the best option for you to do. So that's for that. Now for energy activators, it's the same option just like Catalyst. So you can click on it, it shows you where to go, and that's that. Now weapons, same thing. If you want to farm and doing legacy, you have the options. It shows you the percentage for each blueprint and where to go, what to do, and everything, whether it requires sharing or not. So this is a very, very good website. So that's the reason why we are using this to actually farm for Descendant. And in our case, it's going to be Freyna, the Ultimate Freyna. So we're going to click on it. And these are all the blueprints and the code. And the first one that we're going to talk about is going to be the Enhanced Cell. So if you go to the drop down arrow, now the first thing that is very important for you to consider is all the resources that you are going to need for each blueprint. And for this one, the most important one, and I think the one that's probably going to be a bottleneck for a lot of people, is the highly concentrated energy residue. Reason being, you're going to need a Enzo. You're going to need an Enzo to actually do that. So as you can see right here, it says highly concentrated energy residue, Hager's, encrypted storages, normal or hard. So that means whenever it says encrypted storages, you need Enzo, because Enzo is the only Descendant that can open encrypted vault. So make sure you take this in consideration. So even after you get the pattern, so if you don't have enough of those, you're going to have to go farm them. The same thing for all the rest of them, except that the Enzo one is going to be one that's going to be an issue for a lot of people, especially if you don't have an Enzo. All right, now into the blueprint, the Enhanced Cell. So we already talked about the resources, now the blueprints. You can see this little icon right here, that means sharing. So every time you see those, that means you need to have sharing, you need to infiltrate, you need to go invisible in order for you to get the pattern. So you get all the pattern here for all 1, 2, and 3 options. So this is what you're going to use. And it also shows you how many of void fragment, whichever type, monomer for this one, and then for the other one, it's going to be inorganic. So you got all these options. Like again, I already show you how to actually farm those shards. They're over here. It tells you where to go to actually farm them and which one. Like for instance, if you were to farm inorganic, then it's going to be in Kingston Grand Square, and you will net 45 for completing it. But there's a better option to actually farm void shards, which we'll talk about in a few seconds. Anyway, back to Descendant. Now, like I already said, to get this blueprint, you're gonna need a Sharon. All three options require infiltration to get the patterns. There is no other way around it. This sucks, but if you don't have Sharon, there are Sharons during the outpost in the public version, so you can tag along. Just make sure you hide while Sharon is infiltrating, and make sure you get hit on the boss when the time comes. Otherwise, you will get nothing. If you don't hit the boss, you will not get anything. That's why I do not like to do this in public. And therefore, if that's not convenient for you, I would highly suggest you either invest in a Sharon, or have a friend with a Sharon, or go to the official Discord server for the First Descendant and ask for help. I've helped a few people in the Discord server in the past, and there are other people doing the same thing. Now, like I said, one thing you need to consider is to check your inventory and check the reactor on the map to see how many void shards you have available for each option. And that should be factored into which pattern you go after. All that being said, I've tried all three options, and my recommendation is 063AB in Sterile Land, the repository. It took me 13 tries to get it, but it could take you less, and the boss fight is way easier than the other two options, which are very annoying. If you decide to do 063AB, hopefully you don't end up with 100 pythons before you get the blueprint. But all three patterns they want you to farm to get Freyna Enhanced Cell blueprint kind of suck in my opinion. Regardless, 063AB has my recommendation. Anyway, for the second item, the Ultimate Freyna Stabilizer. Here are the options for the patterns, right here. And as you can see, you got 1, 2, 3. This blueprint, it can be a conundrum. Because of how it is structured, my recommendations will have an option for different types of players. But just like any other parts, it's best to go with the option for which the patterns is easier to farm. In this case, the best option is pattern 097AB. Then you need to fight either Swamp Walker or Deathstalker. Swamp Walker is best if you can solo it, and also if you don't meet the requirements to fight Deathstalker. Deathstalker is best if you know the mechanics and hate Swamp Walker. Otherwise, you might as well farm Kuiper Mining and go complete either Pyromaniac or Stunning Beauty on the normal difficulty. It's a 6% across the board anyway. I recommend Deathstalker simply because not only it's easier to farm the patterns, it's also a very easy fight. Plus, you have a chance to receive one of the blueprints for the new scout rifle, Frostwatcher, for which I have a video posted on the channel. It's a win-win in my opinion. But to be honest with you, unless you're in a hurry to unlock Ultimate Freyna, doing the Kuiper Mining is not a bad option, because you can use this opportunity to farm void shards, level up Descendants, get a lot of gold, and a very good chance to get a shape stabilizer form that you can use to increase your chance by an extra 5%. So do not count this out completely. The only issue I see is that some people may not be patient enough to do it, because it takes about 17 minutes to complete. The waves are really fast when you do it, especially if you have bunnies and Valby and all those characters around. In my experience, I was getting a pattern about every 3 completions. Even so, I would put this as the best second option if you get a shape form stabilizer to drop, because that would give you an 11% chance to get the blueprint, in comparison to the 6% for all the other options. Anyway, this is our option for Ultimate Freyna Spiral Catalyst. That's our third option. As you can see right here, these are all the patterns that you are going to need. Now, by just looking, you can see the choice is obvious. Just go for the shelter infiltration operation with the highest multiplier. And make sure you change the reward to number 2. That's the one that drops pattern 079 variant AB. Remember that. Sometimes people forget to change the reward and they get the wrong patterns. So, I did 5 runs of the shelter for 10 patterns. Now, the shelter mission is a lot easier nowadays because they changed the boss mechanics. The boss is no longer annoying and you will get 2 patterns per run unless your team messed things up by not killing all the enemies. After getting all your patterns, go fight Devourer. It took me about 7 runs to get the drop, so it could take you less or more, but regardless, it's the easier choice and my best recommendation. Anyway, for the last part is the code. So these are the options that you have available for you. Guys, stay the hell away from Dead Bride. I ran this thing 25 times because I was stubborn. I actually think it might be bugged. I just thought I would warn you guys before I give you my recommendation. That said, contrary to popular belief, my number 1 recommendation for the code is to do the Kuiper mining, if you are patient enough to go through the process. It only took me 2 tries from Swamp Walker to get the code because I use a ship stabilizer, which gave me 20% chance. When I run the neutralized order experiment, it normally takes 3 runs to get a pattern to drop, in my experience. On top of that, if you have Descendant, the weapons to level up, it's a great time to run this mission. It is the best way to level up Descendants there. A lot of experience if you use this mission. You get 21 levels in 1 run. You get hundreds of void shards in 1 run. And you also get thousands of gold in a single run. I believe it's the best option, but most people will shy away from it. But I'm here to tell you, it's the best. People will tell you to do the Vulgus Outpost in White Knight Gulch because you don't need sharing and there's a lot of people doing it, etc., etc. And yes, I did the Vulgus Outpost as an option. While you can get the pattern from the outpost, the drop rate is insanely bad. You could spend 1 hour not getting any drop. I'm not even joking. I spent 2 days doing this, 5 patterns on the first day, and 6 patterns on the second day. On top of that, you need void shards to fight the reactor bosses. So, I opened 5 patterns for the first day. I got nothing. That's when I went to do Kuiper mining. And there, I got 2 patterns after 8 runs. Remember, 17 minutes for each run. And in between those runs, I got a few shape stabilizers to drop. Then I went to fight Swamp Walker, used my stabilizer and got the code on the second try. Now for the sake of experiment and for the video, I went back to the Vulgus Outpost in White Knight Gulch. I farmed 6 more patterns within 2 hours. Then I went back to fight the reactor boss and got the code to drop after 5 tries. That's the reason why I put it as a second recommendation. Obviously, some of you might like outpost farming and might be luckier. That's okay. I would say if it works for you, that's great. Like I said before, I'm only giving recommendation based on my experience. Anyway, thanks so much for watching. I will see you guys in the next one.